In cities like Minneapolis, winter nights carry more than cold air. They carry chants, sirens, and a tension that refuses to settle. Families lock their doors earlier now, weighing every errand against the risk of a raid. Protests turn familiar streets into standoff zones. And hanging over it all is a threat from Washington, one that has not been seriously tested in decades. With 2,500 troops placed on alert, President Trump has raised the possibility of invoking an old law, one that could move the military into American streets and quietly redraw the limits of federal power. This moment did not begin with troops. It began with one woman. On the evening of January 7th, in North Minneapolis, Renee Nicole Good sat in her car. She was 37 years old, a poet whose work often reflected on justice and everyday struggle. That night, she was present as a legal observer, watching a federal immigration operation unfold. According to federal agents, Renee drove her vehicle toward them. One agent fired, later describing the act as self-defense. Her family tells a different story. They say she was parked, there to document, not confront. Witnesses recall confusion, panic, and no clear threat from her vehicle. Emergency calls came in rapidly. Responders found blood throughout the car. Medical reports later noted multiple gunshot wounds. Efforts to revive her began immediately. She was rushed to the hospital. She did not survive. News of Renee's death spread quickly. Friends shared her poetry online. Vigils formed, candles flickering against the cold. Her family demanded transparency. Preserve the car, preserve the recordings, preserve every detail. Attorneys signaled legal action, pointing to what they describe as a pattern of aggressive enforcement tactics. Grief soon turned outward. For weeks, Minneapolis had already been under strain. A surge of nearly 3,000 federal agents from ICE and Border Patrol had moved into the region, targeting alleged fraud operations. Neighborhoods felt the shift immediately. Streets blocked without warning, vehicles stopped at random, schools were pulled into it. Federal agents stopped vans carrying students more than once in a single week. Staff remained calm for the children. Parents were less certain. Virtual learning expanded. Attendance dropped. Morning routines became daily negotiations over safety. Then, 6 days after Renee's death, another incident unfolded. On January 14th, agents moved to arrest Julio Cesar Sosa Celis, a Venezuelan man living in the area. Officials say he resisted using a shovel and a broom handle. An officer fired, striking his leg. Agents deployed a flash device to enter the residence. Smoke filled the space. Multiple people were detained. Federal authorities later described those involved as unlawfully present, with criminal ties. Neighbors questioned the force used. They described a chaotic scene, unfolding quickly and without clarity. That second shooting ignited something larger. Protests swelled again outside the federal building where immigration operations are based. Crowds pressed against barriers. Warnings echoed through loudspeakers. Pepper spray followed, then tear gas. Arrests came shortly after. By morning, the scene had cleared, but the unease remained. People stayed indoors longer. Community groups delivered food and supplies to families unwilling to risk going out. Businesses adjusted quietly. Early closures, rerouted deliveries, empty tables where crowds once gathered. These were not dramatic moments. They were slow disruptions, daily life narrowing inch by inch. On January 15th, President Trump responded publicly. In a post on Truth Social, he described the protests as attacks on federal agents. He warned that if local leaders failed to act, he would consider invoking the Insurrection Act. White House officials reinforced the message. Federal leadership praised the agents involved. State and city leaders pushed back. Governor Tim Walz urged restraint, placing the National Guard on readiness while emphasizing de-escalation. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey accused federal authorities of inflaming tensions to justify stronger measures. Civil rights groups filed suit, alleging unlawful searches and excessive crowd control. A federal judge later restricted certain tactics against peaceful demonstrators. That ruling introduced uncertainty, not resolution. And hovering above it all was a law few Americans ever expect to hear invoked. The Insurrection Act, passed in 1807, grants the president authority to deploy troops domestically under extreme conditions. It has been used sparingly across history during civil war, civil rights crises, and moments of total breakdown in order. Whether this moment qualifies is fiercely debated. Protests have flared, yet they remain largely contained. Local law enforcement still operates. Courts remain active. And yet, words alone have shifted the atmosphere. This week, the Pentagon confirmed that 1,500 troops from Alaska's 11th Airborne Division were placed on standby. No deployment order, no movement yet. But the shift from rhetoric to readiness made the threat tangible. Legal experts warn the language of the law is broad. Terms like insurrection leave room for interpretation. Courts have blocked similar actions before. They may again. But if an order comes, it would happen quickly. Minnesota, a state long associated with welcoming refugees, now sits at the center of a national test. Renee's family continues to ask for answers, not escalation. Sosa Celis recovers under the shadow of deportation. Workers reroute their days. Businesses tally losses quietly. And above it all, the decision remains unresolved. Troops wait. Protests simmer. Cold nights continue. One call could shift everything. If federal troops are sent into American cities over immigration enforcement, what line will have been crossed? And once crossed, can it ever be drawn back?